The Joe Kraft Center at the University of Kentucky has seen a lot of NBA talent working out. 19 NBA draft picks since 2010, 15 of those in the first round. Practice starting all over the country, but only at Kentucky will you have 90 NBA front office personnel to watch. As official practice gets started all over the country, Kentucky basketball practice on this October 10th is a practice unlike any other. 90 NBA scouts and front office personnel are just off of the court in order to watch this Kentucky team go through its paces. This is not going to be a normal practice by any means. This is a combine. This is a pro day. And it's something we've never seen before. I'm Jay Billis. Usually you'd say Reese Davis sitting here. You may never see that again.
We might not have to talk about amateurism either.
But along with Seth Greenberg and Avery Johnson, we've also got Myron Metcalf with us, and former Kentucky great Tony Delk will join us today. We've got a parade of stars, but most of those stars are going to be on the court in something, Seth, that we've frankly never seen before. And there are a lot of people that are saying John Calipari has outdone himself with this, thinking outside the box in a move that some are calling brilliant, some may be saying is unfair. But let's start at the very beginning. Why are we doing this? Why is John Calipari going through this essentially combine practice with all these NBA scouts and front office personnel watching?
John Calipari does think without the box. He's always a step ahead of everyone. But think about this, 90 scouts, 30 teams, but also how many programs have 9 guys that could potentially go in the top 40 of the NBA draft? It's a win-win for the scouts and these players.
Yeah.
Avery, what do the NBA front office personnel get out of seeing this team this early?
Well, as a former NBA coach, we're always consistently banging on the GM's door and telling them what we need. And even when the scouts are in town, we're always talking about, you know, what players we need and the type of player that would fit the style of play. And I think the NBA scouts are here because they're always looking at the best player available when they draft, but also what player fits the style of play of their particular head coach's system.
And you also get a foundation, a baseline from which to scout the rest of the year. And I get to say wingspan in October. How often do you get that kind of joy in your life? I may pass out. Taking a look at this Kentucky roster, this is an older team than John Calipari has had in a couple of years. It's got an outstanding recruiting class with 4 freshmen, ranked the second best recruiting class in the country in our ESPN 100 by Reggie Rankin and Paul Biancardi, the great job that they do. And it's got some juniors and older players that they've not had. Alex Poitras coming back as a junior. Dakari Johnson, a sophomore. So this team has already been through, thus far in the day, 3/4 court sprints, agility and jump training and testing, and now they're getting into their perfection drill that John Calipari and his staff run just about every day in practice, where they've got to make decisions full court. If they make mistakes, they got to do it all over again. And what can you tell from looking at this? Anything?
Well, I think more than anything, he wants players that can get out and run, because you want to try to score as quickly as you can. You know, a lot of coaches want to score in the first 5 to 7 seconds, but also who can take care of the ball on the move. As we saw here, you know, Cal doesn't like turnovers. You got to be able to take care of the ball, and that can be one of their Achilles' heel moving forward.
Passing, catching, running, finishing on the run, sharing the basketball, and getting these guys to communicate something.
Well, they've just made some mistakes. Now John Calipari can have them start over again. And this is a team that I was fortunate enough to see for 6 games in 8 days in the Bahamas, when they played some professional teams and the Dominican national team, the Puerto Rican national team. And there are 12 guys on this roster that can really play.
Yep.
I'm not sure anybody else in the country can boast that kind of depth. There are 9 McDonald's All-Americans, which is a record. The only other team that can boast that this year is Duke, with the #1 recruiting class. This is the #2 recruiting class coming in. Seth, you've seen this group play. You've seen them on tape and saw them in the Bahamas. What have you seen from this group that you like the best?
I think their unselfishness. It's amazing to me that you can get 12 guys to trust each other, share the basketball, and play for each other after only 10 practices in those games in the Bahamas. I think, you know, whether they have leadership or not, they all are in it together, and they seem like they enjoy playing with each other.
And for me, Jay, I've had an opportunity to watch a lot of these kids play on the AAU circuit over the last 2 years, and I've just seen them continue to get better and better. Devin Booker, Tyler Eulis, these kids, they're not the same kids that they were 2 years ago. They've gotten stronger, leaner, they're much more fit and in better physical condition, and I like their maturation, and I like the way they've matured going into their freshman year in college.
Before we look at the menu of things that are coming up today in this practice or combine, you're young enough to remember your playing days. If you were in college and had this type of opportunity, you're an elder statesman. What do you think your feeling would have been as a freshman or sophomore having 90 NBA scouts and front office personnel watching you work out in this kind of environment?
Well, Jay, in 1988, I went undrafted. So if I would have had this opportunity, I would have gone in the first round after leading the nation in assists. Okay, I would have. I was going in the first round, but this would have been great to have an opportunity, especially for me, going to a small school at Southern University, to have this type of attention. Man, I would have been licking my chops. I would have loved this opportunity.
These kids are evaluated since they're in 8th grade. They play in all different types of stages. I've seen all different types of stages. This is the most unique I have ever seen. When you walk into this gym and you see 90 NBA personnel basically evaluating each and every one of your moves, your ability to shoot the ball, your athleticism, it has got to be. I don't care how much experience you have. This is intimidating.
This is different than anything I've ever seen. You've got all these scouts and front office personnel that are sitting on risers on tables with their nameplates in front of them. You know who everybody is. Everybody's eyes are on you. It's really an extraordinary environment. But let's take a look at what these NBA front office people are looking at today. We talked about the perfection drill. That's going to take a few more minutes as they keep going through that. Then we'll follow through with 3-on-3 scrimmaging. John Calipari and his staff have broken up the teams into 3-man teams, their team into 3-man teams. And that could be the most interesting thing of this entire menu, because you're going to have guys with the ball in their hands more than they would be in 5-on-5. They'll have some spot shooting, then 5-minute shooting drills, and then we'll finish up with 5-on-5 scrimmaging. Just an extraordinary. Even Allen Iverson would like this kind of practice.
He sure likes the end of the practice.
Well, we will be back shortly with the remainder of this ESPNU Combine. It's Kentucky basketball practice like you have never seen it before. Come on back.
A 4-man group headed to Kentucky. Devin Booker headed to Kentucky.
John Calipari thinks that Tyler Eulis could lead the country in assists.
Karl Anthony Towns.
The University of Kentucky.
I think that I may be the most versatile player in the country.
Kentucky.
It's kind of a different version of Julius Randle. They're all guys that can score.
The Kentucky recruiting class.
Since John Calipari arrived as head coach in Lexington, he has had nothing but #1 or #1 rated recruiting classes in the country. And this year, no exception. The #2 rated recruiting class in America, led by Karl Anthony Towns from Metuchen, New Jersey. And this 4-man class really is diverse and very good. All 4 ranked in the top 25 in our ESPNU Top 100 by Reggie Rankin and Paul Biancardi. And you both have had a chance to see these players. I had a chance to watch them in the Bahamas. I was blown away by how good they are. Now, it's not the #1 ranked class. That's in Durham, North Carolina at Duke. But it's pretty darn good.
It's like splitting hairs to me. I mean, you're talking about 4 really.
When was the last time you split hairs?
About the same time you've been. hey, my hair's all the way back on defense. Your hair is getting there. You're talking about 4 guys that really bring a special trait, each one of them. Tyler Eulis, he's a great leader. He can distribute the basketball. Karl Anthony Towns, such a terrific interior passer. Trey Lyles, John Calipari said he's been the biggest surprise. He was a 6th-rated player in the country. And then Devin Booker, he knocks down jump shots. Very complete class.
I went and reviewed the championship game against Kentucky last year, and I thought they had 2 problems, especially to start the game. They didn't do a good job of taking care of the ball. They struggled with full court pressure. Calipari's addressed that with Tyler Eulis. Great penetrator, can break down the defenses. He'll have an opportunity to lead the nation in assists this year, depending on.
He's only going to play 20 minutes.
Yeah, but I think Cal addressed it with Tyler Eulis. Also, shooting. You can never have enough 3-point shooting, and Devin Booker he's just knockdown shooter. He shot 42% in the Bahamas from behind the three-point line. Ulis shot 60% behind the line in the three-point line. So I think Cal did a great job of strategically adding the right pieces that can help his team win a championship.
And with the talent that has come back of this essentially 12-man roster of players that can play, I think you could cut this roster in half and form 2 6-man teams, both of which would be ranked in the top 25. That's how talented this group is. Does that mean they're going to win the national championship? No, but they are worthy of winning a national championship. I've been really impressed with the way they relate to each other as well. And we want to send it over to the fourth member of our team, ESPN.com's Myron Metcalf, who is with one of the greats in Kentucky history, Tony Delk. Myron?
Tony, obviously, in 1992, you were a freshman on this campus. What is that experience like to be a freshman here at Kentucky?
It's great because you have the best fans in the country and you get a chance to do what you love in front of so many people, and to play at Rupp Arena in front of 24,000 people. It's exciting.
You never did anything like this. 90 NBA scouts. How do you think you would have handled something like this as a freshman?
This would have been a lot of pressure on me, just a lot of fear of just going out and not really performing the way that you're capable of performing in front of these guys. But it's also exciting to get a chance to see these guys when they're younger. As they get older, you want to make sure that they're in the right situation.
What do you think are the long-term benefits potentially of having an event like this for some of the younger guys on this team?
I think it helps them kind of like work on their game. You know, a lot of times you want to know what you need to work on, and when you got the GMs here and they understand that what makes a player better is hard work, and this is what these guys are doing.
And how do they ensure that they don't put too much pressure on themselves to make the moment bigger than it has to be?
I would tell them just go out there and have fun. Do something. Do what you've been doing your whole life.
Well, thank you, Tony. Back to you, Jay.
Myron, thank you, and making some good points about trying to have fun through this process, because it can be a little bit overwhelming. In fact, sometimes when John Calipari gets his team together, it gets so quiet in here, we feel like we need to tone it down a little bit. This is not your normal practice. Right. And it's a little bit unnerving in a way. But you take a look at the recruiting that John Calipari has done over his time here at Kentucky. It looks like the NBA draft green room when you break it all down, from John Wall to DeMarcus Cousins to Anthony Davis to Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Just an amazing job of recruiting. This year, no different. The only difference this year is he's going to have more upperclassmen back in order to help lead these young players. And in this type of situation where you've got practice starting, some of the older guys already know the drills. It's not a coach-directed team. Some of the older guys are helping out. And it's right now in this pro day combine practice, whatever we want to call it, they have moved on to the 3-on-3 portion. And Avery, do you think this is where NBA scouts can get more out of watching this practice than they can with anything else?
Yeah, the NBA scouts are zeroing in on this drill, because whether you're in a triangle offensive system or a pick and roll system with the corner field, a flex action system, it's always going to involve 3 guys. And it's trying to figure out how these guys play with or without the ball. How do they move? How can they create for their teammates? Do they set good screens? Do they understand spacing? On time and on target passing. So I think, scouts are really looking at how guys perform in this drill. And also defensively, can you fight and negotiate screen action? So I think it's a great drill.
Basketball's a game of 2-on-2 and 3-on-3, and that's really what it is. And these guys have to perform offensively and in comfortable positions. I mean, every possession, guys are going to have to handle, pass, cut, catch it on the perimeter, move the ball. And then defensively, when you got to guard the whole half court in 3-on-3, can you defend the ball? Can you recover and close out? Can you pursue balls out of your area? So, to me, 3-on-3 is a great evaluation tool.
No question. Can you stay in front?
Yes.
And then you're going to have to cover way more ground. You're not going to have as much help. And if you do help, you're going to have to close out a greater distance than you might have to in a 5-on-5 drill.
And also, guys, we're going to continue to talk about, in this platoon system, what guys work well together. Coach Cal is really studying this. He's looking at three guys working in concert together. How do they play with each other? Can they play well off of each other? Can they create when things break down on the floor? Because we all know plays break down, and you got to have guys that can create plays not only for themselves but for their teammates.
And I think he's evaluating winners and losers. Like, as you chart these games, which teams are winning? Which players are winning players? If you go through the course of a couple of weeks and play 3-on-3, you're going to find out the guys that find a way to win and the guys that other guys want to play with. I think that's really important.
Well,
what guys do other guys want to play with?
Well, one of the guys that I think everybody wants to play with, we focused on him briefly, number 3, Tyler Ulis from Ohio. McDonald's All-American, he's 5'10", has a great sense with the ball, an outstanding defender, can put pressure on 94 feet. And really, Avery changes the tenor of the game when he goes in.
Yeah, I played against a lot of small guys, you know, the Spud Webbs, the Muggsy Bogues of the world. Those guys change the tempo of the game. You had to always be aware of where they were. They pick you up full court. When big guys were dribbling in the post, they can come from out of nowhere and steal the ball. And that's how I try to play, try to just be a pest. But he's a pest with some offense, Jay.
Well, Tyler Ulis comes to Kentucky with a great reputation as a passer with tremendous vision. He's an excellent shooter. He had 9 threes on that 6-game trip in the Bahamas, made some excellent passes. Both he and Andrew Harrison led this team in assists. But his defense really stood out. His ability to get up underneath the ball handler, to make the ball handler turn his back. They've got to start further out on the court. And I know, Seth, you were really impressed with him.
Blow me away. His ability to disrupt the offense by putting great ball pressure. Ball pressure buys time for everyone. But if you have a guy that can pressure the ball and disrupt, get people out of the middle of the floor, turn the ball handler, that's a special defender. He's a pass-first point guard that can disrupt defensively, and he gets rid of the ball early. So now all of a sudden those wing guys, they're going to be willing runners. And then when you have one guy that's really sharing the ball, all of a sudden becomes an epidemic.
And also, you know, as a coach, you want guys who can get you in your offense quickly, because you don't want to deal with a 10-second violation in college. You want to get into your offense. You want to have more time to execute. And here's a guy that's not going to be bothered by pressure, Tyler Ulis. He's going to get the ball up the floor probably within 2 or 3 seconds because he's that fast no matter what's happening with the defense. And that's a luxury John Calipari I don't think he had towards the end of the season.
With this kind of depth and talent, you know, we're always talking about Kentucky in October and all season long, but this year perhaps more than any other year since John Calipari has been there because of the platoon system that they're talking about. Unusual, but especially unusual here at Kentucky, where they're talking about essentially like hockey, making a line change every 4 minutes, so 5 new guys. Seth, let's start with you. What's your opinion of this platoon system, and do you think it can work, and why?
Well, I think it can work. I think there are a couple of factors. One, John Calipari in general, he's been a 7 to 8 guy rotation guy. Most coaches are more comfortable with 8-man rotation. Point guard, wing, and front court player. And then you develop a chemistry. But you made a great point to me the other day on the phone, Jay, that when you play these 2 platoons, there's no discussion on who the point guard should be. Tyler Ulis, he's got his group. Andrew Harrison's, he's got his group. These guys will develop a chemistry. My big concern is late in the game, the last 5 minutes, will they have enough time to develop a chemistry to manage the game? Short clock, special situations, dead ball. That's my only concern. Besides that, there's 10 players that are good enough. If they're on the right team with the right chemistry, I think they're going to wear people down.
And you can tell your team, hey, you don't have to pace yourself. Go all out because you're only going to play 4 minutes.
And I'm more concerned about the start of the game because in the NBA, it's not just a 4-quarter league. It's who can get us off to the best start in the first 5 to 7 minutes of the game and set the tempo. And I think that it's going to be a bigger problem for Coach Cal. Are we going to start both of the twins this year? Devin Booker at 3, or are we going to bring Devin off the bench? What do we do with Karl Anthony Towns? I think starting the game is going to be critically important.
The Joe Kraft Center on the campus of the University of Kentucky. We have never seen anything like this. It's Kentucky basketball practice, but what it really is a pro day combine. Just an incredible scene here at Kentucky. Welcome to the Joe Kraft Center on the campus of the University of Kentucky, where the Kentucky men's basketball team is going through a practice, but this is a practice like we have never seen before. John Calipari taking his players through really what is an NBA combine. a pro day in front of 90 front office personnel and scouts from every NBA team. Seth Greenberg, Avery Johnson, I'm Jay Billis. Really an incredible scene, one we've never seen before. And why is John Calipari going through this? Why is he doing this for his team and for the NBA?
Well, for his team, I feel it's terrific because in 3 days, he's going to expose his team to 90 scouts, 30 teams. Then he gets a chance to shut it down, and they can get back to practice. Yes, Allen Iverson, practice, where they can really get to understand the grind of what it takes to be successful to try to hang another banner. You know, this is a basketball team. They're very talented, but when you bring in these scouts, it is a distraction. Midnight Madness, Big Blue Madness, you get it out of the way, then you've got 2 or 3 weeks where you can really lock in and coach your team.
Now, we're going to get to see this team for the next 2 hours, but these scouts are going to get to see this team for the next 3 days. There are 2 days tomorrow and Sunday, so they're going to have 3 days of seeing this team up close and get to study them. How important is it to see this type of player? We could be seeing a third of the first round in the NBA draft here on the floor today. How important to get a baseline to be able to scout off the rest of the year?
Well, it's important because every head coach, when he has an opportunity to meet with his GM or scouts when they're in town, he's always talking about what does he need for his style of play, you know, for his team to perform at the maximum level at both ends of the floor. So coaches are always, I've been in that situation twice with 2 different teams, the Mavericks and the Nets. When I had a chance to talk to Greg Polinsky, who's here from the Nets, or Donnie Nelson from the Mavericks, hey, Donnie, I need a better pick and roll player. Or I need a better defender, especially against stretch 4s. Or, hey, we need a big guy. We need a backup center. So I just think from a coaching perspective, we're always talking to scouts about what our needs are.
Well, a lot of needs have been filled here at Kentucky over the last 5 years since John Calipari's been the head coach here in Bluegrass Country. There have been 19 overall NBA draft picks, 15 of those in the first round. 12 of those have been freshmen. And this year's freshman class ranked number 2 in the country by ESPNU's recruiting analysts. And right now, they're going to see some of the players under John Calipari that have gone into the NBA on our NBA rosters right now. All of these trading cards have been put up in the last couple of days. They may stay there because it's awfully impressive, the talent that has come out of this program, and even more to come at the end of this year, because this is a group of players that has NBA talent and will be in the NBA draft, whether it's this year, next year, or the year after. And right now they are going through 3-on-3 where these NBA scouts can watch these players play in space. And here's the 2014 recruiting class for John Calipari. Every one of his recruiting classes here at Kentucky has been ranked either number 1 or number 2 in the country. This year, no exception. It's ranked number 2 by our ESPNU recruiting analysts, led by Trey Lyles, Carl Anthony Towns from Metuchen, New Jersey, Devin Booker, the son of former Missouri star Melvin Booker, and then Tyler Ulis from Ohio, the point guard who can really defend. And this is a group that's going to come in. They're going to compete for time right away.
It's a really talented, skilled group. But you think about John Calipari, 25 guys in the NBA currently, 18 from his regime. And, you know, a group right out here. These 4 guys, they each bring something a little bit different. You know, Tyler Ulis brings what they've missed, a pass-first, play starter, playmaker, a guy who can really guard the ball. They got a big-time shooter in Devin Booker. They've got, to me, the most complete low-post front court player maybe in the country outside of Jahlil Okafor and Carl Anthony Towns. And then you speak to John Calipari, he says Trey Lyles has been the most impressive in just a short period of time they've been practicing. You put those with veterans, and veterans in Kentucky are sophomores, and you've got a very complete team.
Let me ask you a question, a little off topic of what we've been discussing so far. We had some discussion when Mike Krzyzewski was coaching the U.S. national team as to whether that was an unfair advantage or an advantage in recruiting. When you look at this, the question is bound to come up, so I'll bring it up now. Is this an unfair advantage in recruiting to have this kind of event?
No, I don't think so. And you're gonna see a lot of other teams in the future, college programs, that's gonna try to duplicate what Coach Cal is doing, especially if they have a big-time recruiting class. I think this is great for basketball. I'm excited that we're here showcasing these young men, because at the end of the day, it's not just about what they do for the University of Kentucky. It's about giving them an opportunity to get to the next level, and this is increasing their opportunity.
Well, it's great for the players. It's great for the coaches. It's certainly great for recruiting, but it's great for me. How often in October do I get to say wingspan and talk about hand size? I may pass out. Back to you at SportsCenter. Well, the 3-on-3 competition continues. John Robick with the basketball right now, trying to find an open player. He finds it in Dominique Hawkins. And right now with the ball, Aaron Harrison, a sophomore, averaged close to 14 points last year. Perhaps the best shooter on this roster and played very well in the Bahamas. Not only showed his ability to shoot ball from the perimeter, Seth and Avery, but his ability to put it down. He drove it more, showed a runner, floater, great touch, and got to the free throw line.
And he looked like he's on the LeBron James nutrition plan. Both of the Harrison twins, they look fit. They're in much better shape. They've lost weight. They've toned up. And I think you're going to look for them to try to break the defense down a little bit more, get in the paint, kick the ball out to shooters like Devin Booker. So I like where they are right now.
4% body fat for the Harrison twins, and that's incredible. When you look at their bodies now, and when you saw them play when they were playing with your son,
right,
and totally different bodies. But I think their game has changed a little bit in terms of that they're playing to and through contact, not away from contact. So they have a better understanding of how to play.
Well, we will be back with more with this Kentucky basketball practice. It is Pro Day in Lexington, and John Calipari loving every minute of it.
Randall spins in the paint, dishes in the corner. Aaron Harrison open three. Got it! Aaron Harrison with a three.
I don't know about the clutch gene thing. I just like winning.
Harrison backs out with four, with three. A three on the left wing. It's good! Aaron Harrison's three gives Kentucky the lead.
If that's what I had to do to win, I mean, that's what I have to do.
He did it again! 5.7 seconds to the national championship.
Nobody hit bigger shots in the NCAA tournament last season than Aaron Harrison, who made the last few minutes of each ball game his own personal video game. And this season, as he comes into it, played very well in the Bahamas, where he shot 9 of 20 from three-point range, really seemed to have refined his game. But clearly, Andrew Harrison, his brother Aaron Harrison, have the skill set that you want. The question is, do they have the mindset to be great leaders? Where's the leadership going to come from on this Kentucky team?
Well, I think the leadership's got to come from Coach Cal. I don't think he doesn't have a demonstrative vocal leader. I don't think that's the Harrison twins' personality. So it's got to come from Coach Cal. He's going to be the one that's going to be the great communicator, drive these guys to compete. When there's a time in the game where they need to settle down, he's going to be the one that makes sure that they keep their composure. He's the driving force. I don't really see a great leader on the court vocally. The Harrison twins, because they are in their second year, they're going to lead by example. But I think it's got to come from Coach Cal.
Don't you think really good teams have a collective responsibility where there's a team leadership, and depending on the situation, different guys will step up? I think this team, without a doubt, Cal is the leader of this team. He's the guy that's created the vision and the culture. But I think this team is going to be team-driven. It's going to be led by a group of players. And I think Tyler Ulis, he's going to be a key leader for this team because he's not afraid, and he's the type of guy that you can't lead unless people are going to follow you. He seems like the type of guy that other guys are going to follow.
Does the platoon system affect leadership in any way? Is it easier to cultivate leadership if you're playing guys more minutes?
I think it is, because if you had a guy, a point guard, one of your guards playing 32 minutes a game, he's performing at a high level, then he has more of an opportunity to be a leader. But I think the platoon system reduces the effectiveness of having or the opportunity for one guy to lead.
When you coach in the NBA and you had a second unit, did you have at times a captain or a leader of each unit?
Not really, because our starting point guard was the leader. The backup guy, sometimes he could be on a 10-day contract.
Well, speaking of leadership, Myron Metcalf with a guy who was a pretty darn good leader when he played at the University of Louisville, Kenny Payne. Myron?
Kenny, it's always the question when you are talking about young teams, where will the leadership come from this year with this Kentucky team?
I think it starts with the veteran guys, but at the end of the day, I think it starts with the point guard, Andrew Harrison. This is his team to lead us to how good we're going to be.
In terms of leadership with Andrew Harrison, how much do you think it helped that this team had that big run in the NCAA tournament and Andrew Harrison was that guy?
I think it was huge. I think you follow that up with what we did in the Bahamas and the way the young guys embrace him and what he's about and being about this team. It just enhances what we're trying to do, and it makes our job as coaches even better.
Another rare thing, you never hear about Kentuckian veterans, but you got Willie Cauley-Stein, you have Alex Poitras. What do you expect from those guys in terms of leadership roles for this team?
We expect them to be examples of what to do, the right things to do, the way you carry yourself, to show the young guys exactly how hard this is, and to go out on the floor and perform every day by example.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Back to you, Jay.
Myron, thank you. And Kentucky returns 59% of its scoring from last season. That's the most since the 2012 season, when it returned 54% of its scoring and wound up winning the NCAA title. So they not only had some players coming back, Darius Miller being one of them, that team also had Anthony Davis, which is a pretty good reason for winning. But when you look at the leadership of this team, how important is it to have players that are coming back, that know the system from the year before? You can put them in a drill. You don't have to explain it to all the freshmen. They can just watch the guys at the front of the line do it and do it right.
I think it's huge, and I also think that Kenny Payne made a huge point. Coach Payne said to let these guys understand it's not that easy, because winning is hard. The other team's trying to win also. And winning at Kentucky, even though you have great players, all right, you're the biggest game on everyone's schedule. Everyone wants to get a little piece of these guys. How do you prepare for a game? How do you watch film? How do you go through walkthrough? How do you get yourself up to play each and every night? Now this group, these young players have someone to show them and give them kind of a point of reference of really what it takes to win at this level.
And to your point, Jay, we're in an era right now where everybody's talking about analytics. And Mark Cuban brought up recently, obviously he has an expanded analytics department, but it's all about chemistry and continuity. The teams that can have the chemistry and continuity, bringing a guy like Poitras back, Cauley-Stein back, who understands what Cal is trying to accomplish on the floor, on both ends of the floor, I think it's critically important, and it gives them their best chance to incorporate some of those young freshmen. But continuity and chemistry, it was important when we were in college, Jay, and it's even more important now.
When you say chemistry now, you've got all these outstanding individual talents that John Calipari and his staff are trying to blend together into a true team. Now, they've done it before here at Kentucky. This is not new to have this kind of talent. But when you got this kind of environment where they're trying to show their individual wares, how do you balance wanting to be a pro and wanting to show yourself to all these 90-odd NBA scouts and front office personnel and coming together as a team?
Well, you got to pick your spots, because obviously these scouts are here for a reason, but if you demand the ball too much, if you play too selfish, I think it's going to affect your brand. So you got to pick your spots. When you need to take over a game, take over, shoot it, pass it. That's what scouts are looking for. They're not looking for players that want to dominate the ball. They're looking for players that know how to play with the ball and without the ball.
How far ahead do you think South Kentucky is right now, having spent time practicing before they went to the Bahamas, 8 days, playing 6 games over there, and then having this experience?
I think it's huge. I think the 10 days of practice, because, Jay, you were part of a very famed freshman class as well. I mean, let's be honest, back in the day, that group that you came in with was pretty special. And what's the biggest transition? Learning how to play hard, learning how to compete. That's a learned trait. Having those 10 days of practice and playing those games, I think was a great baseline for these guys to understand just what playing hard is. Because as a college coach, when your freshmen come in, I am sure Coach K redefined to you what playing hard was. Well, John Calipari had to do the same thing to this group as well as last year's group. So it really is a learned trait. I think those 10 days of practice pays huge dividends when they start practice for real.
And obviously when coaches go into a kid's home to recruit him when he's a high school junior or senior, you know, they have their calm teaching voice and loving voice. But when they get you on campus, now you get to see the real Coach Cal. And can you handle the pressure? Can you handle his intense voice during practice? So it's a different ball game once you get on campus, and when they want you to play with energy and with a motor, and that's what these NBA scouts are looking for.
A good Cal and a bad Cal? Was there a good Coach Cal?
He was always, except when he yelled at me. And he had plenty to yell about. Kentucky about to take a water break from their 3-on-3 competition, and it has been spirited competition. All the teams are going at it, and Coach Cal has been very loud over at midcourt. But as they take a break, we will take a break from Kentucky basketball practice with the NBA in full force, watching these outstanding individual talents and what could be a great Kentucky team play. Next Friday, ESPNU's coverage of Midnight Madness starts at 6 p.m. Eastern Time with coverage from Kentucky, Connecticut, and in Tucson with the Arizona Wildcats. And Kentucky fans can tune into ESPN3 for complete coverage of Big Blue Madness. That starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can watch that on ESPN3. Midnight Madness, 1 week from tonight on Friday. Take a look at some of the key games for the Kentucky Wildcats coming up. November 18th, the Champions Classic. Kentucky will be taking on Kansas in the later game after Duke takes on Michigan State. On December 5th, Rick Barnes has a very deep Texas Longhorn team. Then on December 13th, taking on North Carolina from an annual classic. Then perennial power UCLA, coached by Steve Alford, and then the brawl for it all in the Commonwealth of Kentucky on December 27th, taking on Rick Pitino and Louisville. And they will have another outstanding team, and then we'll take on Florida in SEC play. That one in Gainesville. And Big Blue Bahamas this summer. It was a tremendous tour. Kentucky was 5-1. They played 6 games in 8 days, and that was one gas team in that last game. They got clipped at the very end of the ball game, but Karl Anthony Towns was terrific during the entire trip, and the leading scorer on that trip was Alex Poitras. Poitras, the junior, was all over the place. He played ahead of the defense, running in transition. He guarded multiple positions, and he was outstanding on the offensive glass. Kentucky basketball practice, which is really an NBA Pro Day or a combine. These outstanding players getting a chance to show their wares in front of all 30 NBA teams who are here in full force, at least 90 NBA front office personnel and scouts. Seth Greenberg, Avery Johnson, I'm Jay Billis. It's a tremendous pleasure to be here to see these guys play, but in a setting like no other. I've never seen anything like this. And if you're a high school kid that's watching this, what are you thinking?
I want to be part of that.
Is that right?
I mean, you're blown away by it. Every single young player, young talented player, what are they thinking about? They're thinking about getting to the league. Yeah. Well, in one of your first practices, you've got 90 NBA personnel, 30 teams watching you work out. I mean, that's one of the questions kids ask in the recruiting process now. Yeah. You know, do NBA guys come to your practices? Yeah. And, this is a great platform for them. It's great for the players. It's terrific for the NBA personnel. They're going to get a chance to watch 3 days of these players, really put them under the microscope. Usually they visit a gym only for 1 day. So I would be blown away if I'm a prospect.
What about for the NBA folks that come to this thing? Is this something they can't wait to get to, or is it something, hey, we got to go?
Well, we talked about it in the green room before we went on the air. You don't want to be an NBA team that doesn't show up for this. At one time, a team like the Clippers, I think they're represented by 4 guys here today, and that's different from what we remember, right, Jay? The old Clippers, maybe they wouldn't have sent anybody, but now with a new owner, they're heavily represented here, so you don't want to be the NBA team that doesn't show up. Also, I think for NBA personnel, they have a chance to talk about their teams to one another, you know, face to face. Hey, do you like your team? You know, are you thinking about moving this guy? You know, before the season, you have a couple of guys that are unguaranteed. You know, who are the D-League prospects? So they have a chance to talk in person with one another while they're here. And I think that's one of the reasons why most of these guys, I think, love being here.
What about, like, Jay, like you had these guys for 6-7 days. These NBA guys are going to come and evaluate these guys. They're going to see them against like athletes. I mean, where else can they go when they can see 9 potential top 40 guys compete against each other? How many times will they compete against players of that level during the course of the season?
Well, and plus, I think you make a great point that seeing them over the course of 3 days, being in the Bahamas with Kentucky and seeing them over 8 days, you're not going to be able to hide who you are over an 8-day period. You know, maybe over one practice, you can kind of Eddie Haskell your way through it with your body language and all. You're not going to be able to do it over 8 days. So getting that kind of data, I think, is important, and to be able to see them up close for that period of time, I think is a great thing. But even just the measurables, at the end of the year, when we get toward the NBA draft, when we get to May and June, we start talking about, that's when I go crazy, we start talking about wingspan and hand size. It's the first time you've seen reliable numbers on their measurables. For these Kentucky players, you're getting it right now. So you're getting that data earlier, and you've got a foundation or a baseline from which you can scout. How important, Avery, is that to you as an NBA front office guy or a coach or a scout?
Well, it's important because you always want to feel like you're ahead of the curve, especially in, you know, when you're getting ready to draft young players. You know, Jay, compared to when you and I were in college, you know, we were coming out as college seniors that graduated, whether you're on the 4 or the 5-year program like I was, okay? But now players are a lot younger, so scouts to have an opportunity to get as much data as they can on these young men who potentially are going to enter the draft at 19 or 20. It's important.
Now, we just saw the per 40-minute averages on the Bahamas tour, and I wanted to ask you, Seth, the per minute averages that these players put up has become a real selling point for John Calipari with his platoon system. They played 5 guys for 4 or 5 minutes and put a new 5 in. That's the way that everybody played, basically 20 minutes a game. Tell me why the platoon system can work and will work, and maybe a reason or two why you might question it.
I think it can work because when you know you're going to play and you know you're going to get your minutes, your practices are going to improve. I think it's going to be hard to find guys pouting. So everyone is invested. Everyone's engaged each and every day. When these guys come back from the Bahamas, you kind of convert them into 40-minute stats. Pretty impressive. But the team stats are really impressive. When you think of putting together Tyler Jules and Andrew Harrison's, you know, productivity over a 40-minute period, you see quality elite point guard play. You can go right down the line. So I think that it's going to work because there's a good team trust and everyone knows they're going to get a piece of the cake.
You start thinking about per minute averages, you're thinking about analytics, and that has become one of the biggest buzzwords in basketball, really in any game. And right now, Myron Metcalf with one of the kings of analytics.
Myron Metcalf here with Joel Justice, the new director of basketball analytics for Kentucky. First off, what does the director of basketball analytics actually do? That's obviously a unique position.
Well, it's a unique position, you know, in college basketball, just in the way that Cal operates. You know, we're ahead of everyone else, and that's what we're, you know, trying to do for our players. You know, and what we're going to do here is we're going to measure everything that they do, from in the weight room, from when they're jumping, from when games start, from when practices, every day. We're going to, you know, track stuff. We're going to look at stuff, and we're going to see how we can best serve them to create a place where they're going to become the best that they can be.
Obviously, we're seeing an emphasis on advanced stats analytics. How do you use those numbers to help these guys get better each day?
Well, what we're going to look at, and really what I'm going to look at, is stuff to help our coaches coach our players. We're going to look at what they do individually, what they do well, what they're struggling with, who they play well with, what our best lineups are, what our best 2-3 player combinations are, and see how our team best functions and how we're the most efficient day in, day out, but also once games start, and taking a look at that versus our opponents.
Definitely thank you for your time.
Well, Tyler Ulis going through these shooting drills right now, and you know they're all being charted so that those analytics can be put to good use. And we'll be back with more of Kentucky's basketball practice here on ESPNU right after this. Well, it feels like basketball season here at Kentucky, but it's college football season. And college football action continues Saturday on ESPNU, first at noon, as Iowa hosts Indiana in a Big Ten matchup. Then at 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time, it's college football prime time. Presented by 5 Hour Energy. Seth Greenberg took 2 of those before Kentucky's practice started, as Air Force taking on Utah State. That's Saturday night. Both games are also live on Watch ESPN. And we're going through some shooting drills right now. And this Kentucky team last season, even though they got to the national championship game before bowing to eventual national champion UConn, this team was not known as a great shooting team. You threw a zone up against Kentucky, made them shoot over the top, and the Wildcats had a few problems here and there. But this team, Seth, seems to be a much better shooting team. And Tyler Ulis, one of the reasons why he's an excellent shooter when he's open. Shot 9 of 20 from three-point range in the Bahamas. How much better of a shooting team is Kentucky this year versus last?
I think they're a better shooting team because they're going to be a better ball movement team. I think they're going to make that extra pass. The ball's going to be moved from side to side, and they've got better shooters. Devin Booker is a jump shooter. Tyler Ulis can make shots. Both Harrisons are capable of making shots. Aaron, obviously, a better jump shooter. And they've got some stretch big guys that can shoot it. You know, Karl Anthony Towns, he can shoot at the three-point line, which will make him a dangerous player in any type of high-low or inside-out. And Trey Lyles, although he's not a three-point shooter, he shoots it well enough to stretch the defense. So they have more guys that can make jump shots.
And, Coach, you know this because you did such a terrific job coaching at Virginia Tech, but the worst thing that a coach can have is a shooter that can't shoot. They get coaches fired.
You need makers.
That's why I'm hanging out with you.
So you need guys like, you know, Booker that can not only take shots but make shots. And if you can make shots, it's going to stretch the defense. The more defenses can shrink the floor, you hear that term a lot on the NBA level, that makes it harder to run your offense. But when you can stretch defenses, you know, out beyond the three-point line, it opens up gaps for penetration. But you can only do it if you can have guys that not only take threes but make them.
Well, Devin Booker, an outstanding shooter, but he's also a guy who can put the ball on the floor. He's strong, very athletic. He's gotten his body fat down. He looks great. And he can really shoot. Didn't shoot it particularly well in the Bahamas, but if you watched him play in high school, and we all did, he can really shoot it, especially when he gets his feet set.
I think so also, Jay, a kid like Devin Booker in the Bahamas, he was still trying to figure out where his shots were coming from. I think when you're a shooter, once you get accustomed to knowing where your shots are coming from, and now you're stepping into those shots, shot ready, you become that shooter that everyone thought you would be. And I think that's what's going to happen with Devin Booker.
Well, John Calipari certainly feels comfortable with the talent that he's got on the floor. It's just a question of making that talent blend together. He'll join us right here at the desk when we come back. We're inside of the Joe Kraft Center on the campus of the University of Kentucky for one of Kentucky's first basketball practices of this young season, and it's a practice like no other we've seen in college basketball history. 90 NBA front office personnel and scouts are here to watch, and we have John Calipari wired.
Alex, one thing, as this ball moves to you and it's you and something happening over there, just take the guy. You know what I'm saying? Just go by him. You're like trying to, you know, they boom, 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 the guy hits you and goes away, go by him and score. 2 hands now. 2 hands. Knock it down, Trey. Good, great job. Woo! Perfection, good job, guys. Alex or Trey or a big go back door, maybe a high-low. Water, guys, just grab that water, go ahead, grab the water. Listen to me. Get the ball moving and play. If you hold the ball, now the ball swings and you can take a guy, then take him. Okay? Don't hold it, especially initially. Get rid of it, and then when you get it back, play. Make them move that defense. You're doing great, guys. Doing great. Keep going. Here we go.
You good?
John Calipari in this
only one guy.
Scouting Combine Kentucky practice. He joins us here at the desk right now as his team goes through 5-minute shooting drills. And you're going to need 5 hour energy to get through this entire practice. It's been really fun. And John, as we bring you in here, where did this idea come from? Because this is a really unusual thing that we're seeing here at Kentucky, to have essentially 90 NBA front office personnel and scouts come to watch your practice and to watch your players and get sort of a baseline of foundation as they go through scouting them the rest of the year.
Well, there's 2 points to this. One, as you know, all 30 of these teams would have been here the first week anyway. So now we control it, and I can get back to working with my team. But the other thing is, I need these players, if we're really going to blue or two platoon or whatever you want to call it, they got to know I got their back. Yeah. That you can still play 20 minutes and accomplish your personal dreams as we try to do something unique. So by doing this right away, that was part of it. The other part is, what do I have to do to help these young men get where they're going? I've got 5 guys in this gym right now from different teams, and one, Rod, is going to help me, give me a great foundation. Coach, here's where they are, here's where they need to go. Each individual player, and we learn right at the beginning of the year.
Where did the idea come from? Where did it first come up and you thought, you know what, we're going to do that?
You know, I've been talking to combines for years. I did one in 2011 postseason, and it got outlawed. This will probably get outlawed too. So all you coaches that think you're going to start doing this, believe me, since I did it first, it's outlawed. You cannot do it. So I proudly wear the black hat, just so you know. So my point of it is, with this and what we're doing and how we're trying to do it, it just came to me like, I've been talking about combines. How about we do it early? Why the Bahamas? Your talk to him was great. What you talked about, Jay, I had you speak to the team about you can do something unique and special, but you're going to have to share. All those little things are going to matter. You can't worry about anything other than coming together as a team. Bahamas was about that. Would they buy into it? This is the same thing. I'm working on my guys. If it helps recruiting, that's fine. But that's not why I did it. I did it for my team and these kids here.
Now, after this is over, are you going to close your doors to outsiders to have some private practice?
For a while,
time?
I will. So there are a couple teams of GMs that are overseas that called me and said, Cal, I can't be there. Can you? I may let a guy slide in and out who could not be here, but I'd like to go at least 2 to 3 weeks of just us. You saw enough. You don't need to be back. I gave you everything. We gave you booklets with, I can't, what else are you going to see? Plus, they're going to stay tomorrow. We go twice. They're going to stay Sunday. We go at least once, maybe twice. At that point, you know what these guys are. Evaluate others. Now, here's the last thing. I had a friend of mine call. Do you really want to put your guys in it? You know, because in Chicago, a lot of kids won't go. They think it hurts them. This is so early, Avery.
Yeah.
The only thing it could do would help. If you struggle, I think, Seth, you said it, it's not all bad, because when you get better at the end, they say, wow, he got better. He improved. I would say that this is something, if it goes like it's looking, it may be something that I want to do every year. Get us started, get you in, get you out, let me get my team together. Let's worry about us now.
The platoon system. What's the upside, and what are the challenges that you see with it?
The upside is 10 kids eat, and really 12 kids eat. Now, it's easy to say, well, you should only play 8 or 7 unless that's your 2 or 3 sons that aren't playing. And these kids all deserve to play. I did not expect Willie and Alex, the twins, to come back. I wasn't sure if Dakari come back, but they all did. So now I got to take care of all of them. The downside, what if 1 or 2 kids separate?
Yeah.
And they deserve more minutes. This isn't communism. They deserve more minutes. Doc Rivers said to me, that's going to be your issue. 2 guys separate. How do you get them more minutes than everybody else? That will play over time. How do you finish a game? Who are our 5 best free throw shooters? We practice with those. Last 4 or 5 minutes, you guys go
Coach,
in.
we've talked about leadership. Who's the leader for you on the floor? Now, I said I don't think you have a defined leader yet. I think it's you. But who would you say?
And that's an issue.
Okay.
It is an issue. We've only been 5 practices, but, well, I take that back. We did some stuff this summer, but we finished the practice, and I said, who's dragging us? And they all looked around. And I said, I'm dragging you. It's going to be a long season if I'm dragging you, and you're not going to be happy much of it. So what's happening is it'll develop over time. I'm trying to teach all these kids what leadership is. Leadership is basically servant leadership. You serve everybody else, and that's what I've got to teach. Now, maybe 4 of these guys lead us through the year, but I want the other 8 or 9 to learn what it means to lead if they're ever in that situation.
Now, Cal, you've always played 8 guys. You're going to play 10, 11, 12.
I've played 6 now. My best 2 teams, I've played 6 guys.
How hard will it be for you to say, all right, let's go? And how hard will it be to find practice time
you've
at the
known
end
me
of games?
probably as long as anybody, and you know how calm I am. I don't get excited in games. Winning and losing, it doesn't matter to me. If we lose, we lose. You know how I am. I've got to accept, and I've got a fan base that's got to accept, and they're really easy accepting.
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
But they've got to accept that if we take a couple spills early trying to figure this out, I got to be okay, and they got to be okay. That'll be the hardest thing. I am committed to this, not because it's best for me, not because it's best for this program right now. It's best for these kids, and I'm going to try everything I can to figure it out.
Well, thanks for joining us. If you wouldn't mind loaning us that black hat so that Seth and I can
wait a minute.
The shine off of our heads is blinding Big Blue Nation.
You've worn the black hat yourself, and so have you. Avery, you've worn it a few times. I just happen to own it. I don't know where.
He's just trying to get Reese Davis's job.
Well, there's an awful lot of banners hung up here in the Kraft Center in Rupp Arena, and they're looking to hang another one this season. We'll be back after this. This is not your normal basketball practice. Kentucky in the Joe Kraft Center, their magnificent practice facility here on the campus of the University of Kentucky. And you're taking a look at a trading card blown up of John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Julius Randle, Anthony Davis. 19 players under John Calipari have been drafted into the NBA. 15 of them have been taken in the first round, including a number of so-called one-and-dones. And they may have more of those this year. You take a look at guys like Marcus Teague, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Anthony Davis, who was the #1 overall pick by New Orleans in 2012. And last year, James Young going in the first round, as Julius Randle did to the Los Angeles Lakers, #7 overall. And Avery Johnson, I know you watched Julius Randle in college. You watched him throughout the draft process. And the lefty has got a very bright future in the NBA.
Yes, and Jay, I watched him because he was a part of our Texas Titans AAU program with a great guy, Kenny Trout, who owns the program and leads it. Julius has made significant improvement, not only with his post-up game, but the way he's so versatile with handling the ball on the perimeter. And because he's so unorthodox, because he's left-handed, he's tough to handle. He's tough to guard. And, you know, he reminds me a little bit of Zach Randolph, with a little bit better outside game. Strong. He can play a little bit of 4, and he can move him to the 3 position. So I think the Lakers are going to love having him a part of their team. Byron Scott, Kobe, Julius Randle. I think he's going to have an opportunity, not so much to make Rookie of the Year because Carlos Boozer is playing ahead of him, but he's going to make a major impact this year.
When Julius Randle came out of high school, he was thought to be the 3rd overall pick. Right, he wound up going #7. There's a player here now who's a junior, #22, Alex Poythress from Tennessee. When he came out of high school, everybody thought he was a one-and-done. That would be a lottery pick after his first year. He's now going into his junior year. And Seth, I think a lot of people are saying, hey, he's not as good as we thought, but he's a guy that can play in the NBA. Where do you see him getting drafted, and where do you see him fitting in?
Yeah, I think he can go towards the end of the first round. He's a world-class athlete. I think the question for Alex Poythress is, what is he? You know, what thing does he do that makes him different? He can run, he can jump, he can get to the offensive glass. Does he have that one skill set? He's got to play in the right system, no doubt about it. But he's an elite athlete that can rebound the ball and defend multiple positions. And when you can defend multiple positions in the NBA today, where there's so many ball screens, especially short clock, he has the ability to switch. That guy's going to make a roster. I don't know where he's going to get drafted.
And I think he has to play more in the Kawhi Leonard mode. So he's going to have to learn how to make the corner 3-point shot. If he can learn how to make the corner 3-point shot with the way that he can defend the 3 and the 4 position, I think he's going to increase his draft position.
For a guy who is not overly skilled, doesn't really put the ball on the deck like you'd like, doesn't shoot it particularly well from deep, in order to impress these NBA scouts, I'm not sure you want to try to show them what you can't do. You try to emphasize what you can. And for Alex Poythress, what would be your mindset going into this kind of event and going into the season?
Well, I think for him, he needs to show that he can put the ball on the floor a little bit. He doesn't need to over dribble, but he has to show that he can put the ball on the floor, because most NBA scouts, they have him locked into an undersized 4. He needs to prove that he can play the small forward position.
Back in 1996, Kentucky had a national championship team that a lot of people think was the last truly great team in college basketball. Tony Delk played on that team. And we're talking about all the talent that this team has. That 96 team had a heck of a lot of talent, and Myron Metcalf is with Tony Delk right now.
Tony, obviously that team had a lot of talent. You know a lot about what it takes to succeed at the next level. Alex Poythress seems to be the guy that a lot of people have question marks about. What do you see him doing at the next level?
I could see him being a top 20 pick. He's a guy that brings a lot of athleticism. He's smart. He understands the game. And then it's just about finding a position for him. And he could play either one of those positions. Just put him in the game and let him play.
I'm not saying he's Kawhi Leonard, but have guys like that proven that you can be 6'6", 6'7" with the motor and you can find a place at the next level?
You can. It just has to be a coach understanding your game and what you can bring to the team.
You had a stacked team in 1996. Antoine Walker, you, Ron Mercer, so many talented guys. How would you guys have stacked up against this squad we're looking at right now?
It would have been a great game just to play against them, but the competition level that I had at practice every day made us better and got us ready and prepared for the NBA.
We're talking about a lot of draft picks, a lot of guys who are going to be making a lot of money soon. How did you all balance the egos with that when you had so many guys who were that talented? How did you come together to make that thing work?
We all sacrificed. Everyone was a great player at their high school, their college. Going back to when I was playing, the good thing about being a great player is understanding what you need to do to provide for your team, help sacrifice, make those kind of efforts that are going to help the team win down the street.
Thanks, Tony. Back to you, Jay.
Well, you not only remember the outstanding talent from the 96 team, they had denim uniforms back then. We've seen 3-on-3, we've seen shooting drills, but it's a 5-on-5 game. We get to see these guys play 5-on-5 when we come back. College football action continues Saturday on ESPNU at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Louisville looks for a win on the road in Death Valley against the Clemson Tigers. Then at 7, it's college football primetime presented by 5 Hour Energy as South Florida hosts number 19 East Carolina. Both games also live on Watch ESPN. We are in the Joe Kraft Center on the campus of the University of Kentucky as we go further into this Kentucky basketball practice as 90 NBA front office personnel and scouts have front row seats. They're all up on risers. They had a lottery to determine where they were going to sit, and Seth Greenberg lost the lottery. He's got to sit next to me.
I thought Reese Davis was going to be sitting.
Yeah, exactly. But now we're headed to 5-on-5, and we talked about the 3-on-3 and what you can see from that. We had shooting drills, agility testing, jump testing, but it's a 5-on-5 game. And if you're going into this, Avery, what do you tell these guys on what you want to see from them in a 5-on-5 game?
Well, now I want to see who's in the best condition, because the kids have been out here since 1 or 2 o'clock going through agility drills, and now I want to see who's in shape, who can play the best at the end of practice, because in a coach's mind, this mimics the end of a game. This is the fourth quarter. So who's going to be able to move the basketball, take care of the basketball without turning and limiting their turnovers, because you can't defend turnovers. So I think those are 2 of the things Coach Cal's looking at.
I think these guys got to play to their strengths. I think, all of a sudden lights go on. All right, don't try to be someone you're not. All right, if you're a runner and a jumper and a guy that's supposed to get to the rim, get to the rim. Share the ball, move the ball, but play to your strengths and make good basketball plays.
Seth, do you think there's anything in these matchups with this 5-on-5 as to combinations that John Calipari wants to see out of the gate?
Yeah, I think it's really important. They're charting everything. I think the most important thing John Calipari's got to do this year is figure out who plays well with each other. I mean, what pieces fit? Who's the best post player to play next to a Karl Towns or a Willie Cauley-Stein? What wing players are going to emerge? Because, whoa, what a terrific ability to run the floor by Dakari Johnson.
Well, and that's something we didn't see last year, and his mobility has really improved. He's not going to be a burner up and down the floor, but he is doing a much better job. His mobility is much better, even in the half court.
Dakari Johnson's an interesting guy because he's dropped 25 pounds in the offseason. You know, he's never going to have a great lift, but if he can change ends of the floor, get out on ball screens, and create space, pretty good.
And this is a guy, guys, that we were talking about, Devin Booker, you know. He makes a three. The ball didn't even touch the rim. He has a beautiful-looking stroke.
And to be able to knock down open shots, which he can do, that's going to force defenders to close out to him. And he's also got a good ability to put them all on the floor. He's got a big body. He can get into people. He didn't show it as well probably because he wasn't making his shots when he was in the Bahamas. But nobody steps out to get a hand up. And you're right, Avery, that nothing but net.
And because Coach Cal's getting this on video, he'll have an opportunity to reward and talk positively about Booker's three, but then he'll also talk about what poor defense it was on the dribble handoff play.
And that's a huge value for this. They're going to get this on tape, so it's a great teaching tool this early in the season in terms of defining effort, acceptable effort, unacceptable effort, running the floor. The one thing you're going to see from this Kentucky team, I think, Jay, they're going to run and attack earlier in transition. When I think of Kentucky and John's teams, I think of physical half-court defensive teams and grinded-out offensive teams. I think this team's going to try to play a little bit faster.
Well, right now getting into a horn set, which they ran quite a bit in the Bahamas. They didn't have a whole lot in. They still don't. Obviously, it's very, very early, and you don't want to overburden the players right now trying to get too much of your stuff in. But one of the players that I was really impressed with down in the Bahamas was freshman Karl Anthony Towns. He's got a size 20 shoe, and he's still growing, which is a frightening thought. But one of the things that's really impressive, he can really pass it. And I remember Paul Biancardi and Reggie Rankin both praising his passing ability, our great ESPN recruiting gurus. And they're right. He really has a great feel of passing out the post.
And you look at two teams this year in the NBA. You know, the defending champion, the San Antonio Spurs. Now the Cleveland Cavaliers with the addition of LeBron James and Kevin Love. Why do people really love watching those guys? Because of their passing ability. The way they can move the ball, set up their teammates, whether it's passing and getting the ball ahead. On the break, Kevin Love's one of the best outlet passers in the game today. LeBron James is one of the best passers in the half court. The Spurs, the best passing team. So it's an lost art, and that's an area that Coach Cal has improved strategically with the addition of Lyles.
And I think the other thing that's interesting to me with Karl Anthony Towns is that his international experience, he's 18 years old, but he's played a lot of basketball and international basketball. He's played with adults and has a very high basketball IQ and feel, and that's going to bode well for this team. But I'll tell you what he's not doing a very good job of right now is changing ends of the floor.
You know, Tyler Ulis has had the ball in his hands quite a bit, bringing it up, and it has been really interesting to watch the defenders in blue try to stay in front of him. He is jet quick and has got a presence with the ball that you don't see in a lot of young players.
And we always use this word swagger. And when you're 5'9" or 5'10", you know, you got to have a little swagger about you. You got to be in control of your team. You got to be a floor general, great leadership ability. You got competitive defensively, especially with picking the ball up as early as you can in the possession, harassing the offensive team. So that's what I see in Tyler Ulis.
He's kind of like a boxer. I mean, he's like physical and tough, and he's not afraid of going after people. And I think, you know, you talk about leadership and toughness and things of that nature. He does it with his presence at 5'9". I mean, he's got a toughness about him just in the manner in which he carries himself. But, you know, this team is very interesting, but it is void of, as you look at it, you know, if you wanted to put more traditional lineup on the floor, do they have a guy that you could say, you know, that guy is a traditional small forward? As you look at the lineup, you know, Jay, you were with him for 8 days. You know, is that the one void in this team in your mind?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they run so many people at you. You're trying to catch your breath as you take a look at these 5-on-5 teams, the blue, with Aaron Harrison, his brother Andrew, the point guard, Trey Lyles, the freshman from Indianapolis, Karl Anthony Towns, and Marcus Lee and Derek Willis round out the roster, going against Tyler Ulis, Devin Booker, Alex Poitras, Willie Cauley-Stein, Dakari Johnson, who has changed ends very effectively, and then Dominique Hawkins.
Yeah, they're right there. I look for John Calipari to look to post up Alex Poitras. You can call him what you want. You can call him a small forward, blend forward, a hybrid forward. But he's smart enough to understand, let's put him, coaching is putting guys in positions to play to their strengths. And that right out of that timeout, great job of running him down to the block, establishing him, and playing through him on the block. And I think that's something that this team, they're going to have to figure out when you're playing those three big guys, how do you find different opportunities for guys like Alex Poitras and Trey Lyles to catch it tight and make plays?
And because Poitras can swing to the hybrid forward position, I don't think there's going to be enough minutes for all of their big guys. Because if the minute that Poitras goes to the forward position, it reduces the minutes of Cauley-Stein or Johnson or Lee. And I think that could be an issue for him.
One of the things that this team can really do is offensive rebounds. Yeah. And so anytime a shot goes up, your first shot defense against Kentucky had better be good, but your box outs, you had better gang rebound. All 5 guys have to go to the glass, and that still might not be enough.
Their best offense might be the missed shot because they got guys that can flat get to the glass. I think 2 concerns for John. If I was him with this big lineup, defending the 3 with those big guys, can you get out and run guys off the 3-point line? And then defensive transition, we saw it early in the start of the scrimmage. Will they be able to change ends of the floor and defend in defensive transition? Because it's going to be hard to get to the rim against them.
Well, that was one of the only things that Dakari Johnson had a little bit of a problem with in the Bahamas was when opponents would put him, they would involve him in as many pick-and-roll situations as they could. And you can imagine that's going to happen a lot, that opposing coaches are going to try to get him further out on the floor and make him guard ball screens.
Yeah, and I think also it's how this team executes at the end of a game. The University of Kentucky's team this year, they're going to be have to play at a championship level every game that they play, wherever they're playing. If they're playing at Florida, playing against Louisville at home, Texas A&M, wherever they're playing, because the opposing team, that's their championship team. They're going to be measured at how we played against Kentucky.
But Avery, how about the idea that Kentucky, you can make an argument that Kentucky's practices are going to be more difficult than maybe half or 60% of their games?
Totally agree. Yeah.
How good is that for a team, and can that, I mean, is there any downside to that?
There's no downside to that. I think for a young team, that's going to make them more mentally tough. Even though we don't have any fans in the building or they're not on the road, but in terms of a talent pool, you're right. We have 2 teams that could possibly be ranked in the top 25 had they had 2 different names.
I think that what you said a second ago, Dave, is really going to be interesting because there are going to be some close games. And what's the art of the upset? Control the tempo of the game. Someone's going to try to get them in a tempo game. And how will this big lineup respond? And if they don't respond, all right, so now you're going to go small. If you go small and you practice it every single day with these 2 platoons, are you going to have enough practice time with this small lineup to be able to execute in the last 5 minutes of the game with a little bit different lineup than they're used to practicing with every day? I think their staff is going to have to make a concerted effort to practice in the beginning of practice with different lineups so that they can execute at the end of games during the course of the season.
Yeah, especially if you have a need situation. You know, does Cal have enough time to go over all of his special situations? We need a 2. Who do we go to? We need a 3. You know, we need a quick 2. All of those special, we're taking the ball out. Obviously in college, you take the ball out much more underneath than you do in the NBA. You know, what do we do in the situation we're down 3 at Mississippi State with 7 seconds to go? Where do we go?
If they're down 3 at Mississippi State, that's going to be a heck of a game.
I mean, is this the kind of thing where you could see experimentation? I mean, this is a team that, talent-wise, I think we'd all agree is capable of winning the national championship. Now, whether they get the chemistry right and the combinations right, the platoon system, whatever they wind up doing. But could we see this team kind of experiment throughout the season? I don't want to say not worrying about winning and losing during the year, but because they will worry about that. But with an eye more towards March in the NCAA tournament rather than what's going to happen early in the season.
The pursuit of perfection's over. That was last year.
Right. No more T-shirts?
No more T-shirts. I think this team's main focus, let's face it, how are they going to be evaluated? If they don't go back to where they were, I'm sure a lot of people look at it like it's been a failure. So I think everything they're doing each and every day is all about March in the first week of April. So it's hard for the fan base, the Big Blue Nation. They are so passionate, but John Calipari, the one thing he was able to do last year, I mean, we all watched that South Carolina game where he got thrown out. I didn't think there was any chance they could return after that game. I mean, and he got that team back. He has the presence and the experience to figure out a way to get them back. And I think that's something he's got to hammer into him each and every day.
When I got hired, Jay, said in 2005 by Mark Cuban, he talked about, I want to have an opportunity to go to the championship. I want to have an opportunity for the Mavericks to get to the championship for the first time in his team history. So in my mind, when we practice or when we were in the game, I would tell my team, even after some of our wins, we won this regular season game, but that's not going to work in the playoffs. That's not going to help us get to the championship. I think that's going to be Coach Calipari's message. He's going to win some games this year where he's not going to be happy, because if they didn't have the right ball movement or the mental toughness, he'll tell his team that's not going to work during March Madness.
Well, people seem to forget that last year's Kentucky team lost 11 games. They remember how the team finished, and that's often how it works. And as this first section of 5-on-5 finishes, the blue team made a nice little comeback to get it to 14-12. And there has been some defense and diving on the floor, going after it. And there's also been some pretty darn good passing. Tyler Ulis with the alley-oop and the finish. Saturday on ESPNU, it's College Football Daily, The Edge. Analytics, team trends, player breakdowns, and injury updates. We'll give you all the information you need to know heading into the weekend of college football. It's The Edge, Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on ESPNU. And earlier today, this Kentucky team went through the paces of agility and jump testing. Dakari Johnson showing that mobility, running in a straight line, run faster than he's ever run before. And we had jump testing, a little bit of powder on their hands as they put their hand up as high as they could up on the backboard. And then the agility shuttles. And Tyler Ulis, I think, didn't have my stopwatch on it. It looked faster than anybody else. And you see Chad Ford, our draft guru, with his rankings, and obviously it's early in the process, but 8 Kentucky Wildcats ranked in the top 50 of Chad Ford's top 100. Just shows you how much talent there is on this Kentucky team. We're talking about platooning. There's 12 guys that really could play on almost any team in the country. 9 McDonald's All-Americans on this roster. That is a record tied only by Duke this season with the recruiting haul that Mike Krzyzewski has in Durham. And it's really an amazing scene that we're seeing here. We've never seen anything like it. 90 NBA personnel here to watch a practice. They're sitting on tables, on risers, as we're about to go through our second session of 5-on-5. And you know, look, we talked about all the players. What's the feeling you're getting from this? It feels different than anything I've been through.
It's different than any practice for sure I've been to. And I think the feeling is, I think the kids early on, especially in that scrimmage, there was some tentativeness. I mean, I think they're a little bit exhausted from everything else that's gone on before they got into 5-on-5, but I think now they'll settle in and they'll just play basketball. And you talk about guys that no one's talking about. Derek Willis, my years at Virginia Tech, we had some pretty good teams. We were fortunate enough to win at Carolina, win at Duke. That guy, who probably won't be in their rotation, could have started maybe for every team I had but one.
It's really amazing. 12 players deep. They could have 2 6-man teams, in my judgment, that would be ranked in the top 25. When you talk about individual players, and not just their place on this team, but their place potentially in June's NBA draft, one player who didn't play in the Bahamas because of an injury is Trey Lyles from Indianapolis. 6'8", can play with his back to the basket, very versatile, good skill level, can pass it, can make a face-up jumper, and can put it on the deck. Avery, what do you think that his future holds, not just at Kentucky, but if he were to go into the NBA?
He has a bright future. Jay said I had an opportunity to watch this young man in the EYBL tournament, AAU tournament in Minnesota last year, and he put on a show. You know, Indiana Mr. Basketball. This kid, I know Chad has him projected 44th, but I think we're going to have to remove the 4 and put at least a 1 in front of it, because I think he'll go 14 and higher because he's multi-skilled. The NBA game right now is about versatility. He's one of the most versatile players that they have on this roster, and his game projects because of his size, his strength. I think he has high basketball IQ. his game projects to the NBA level. So I wouldn't be surprised if this kid gets better and better as the season goes on. I think he'll end up being a small forward.
You know, Avery, when you talk about a player, oftentimes I think fans, and maybe all of us, we think offense first. How important is who you can guard when you get to the NBA level?
It's important because you got to be able to defend your position. And what we talk about on the NBA level is, can you defend the first 2 or 3 dribbles? Because you can have the best defensive team in the league, but they can't help you if you get blown by on those first 2 or 3 dribbles. He has the potential to defend the first 2 or 3 dribbles, and especially in the NBA now also, you got to be able to play pick and roll defense, whether you're involved as a guy that's on the ball or whether you're defending the screener.
And that's what Willie Cauley-Stein makes him so interesting to the NBA, his ability to run, his ability to get out on ball screens and get back into play and still protect the front of the rim. And that's why the versatility to the lineup is so unique. My question for Cal is, they're going to be a good man-to-man team because his team's always defend. You're going to see more zone from this Kentucky team this year, maybe than any year I can remember.
And for more, let's go over to Myron Metcalf. Myron?
Well, guys, we've been talking a lot about the talent that's here in the building. I talked to one NBA scout who said this is kind of like being at the grocery store. You're shopping because there's so much talent on the floor. And Kentucky is obviously setting up drills and various activities to cater to the NBA scouts. That's what makes this a lot different from a typical practice. They're doing this for the scouts, so it seems like everyone feels like they're going to benefit, and it's a good opportunity to look at guys like Trey Lyles and Alex Poythress and some of the other players on this roster in a unique situation.
You know, Myron, when you've talked to these NBA scouts and front office personnel, what's the feeling that you're getting? Is this something that they're enjoying, that they feel is really good, or is it something they feel like they have to be at?
A little bit of both. The guys I've talked to say, obviously, this is something where, you don't want to be the team that doesn't show up. And at the same time, it's unique in that these are the kinds of things that they'll be doing with these players next summer in various workouts and drills and at the combine. So it's realistic, more realistic than maybe attending a typical practice. So it seems like they know they have to be here, but I think they're also getting something out of it as well.
Well, Avery, we've talked about John Calipari and his recruiting, but there's an aspect of recruiting to today's NBA that perhaps didn't exist years ago.
Yeah, especially with all of the salary cap restrictions. Everybody's basically playing on a level playing field. It's not like baseball where there's no salary cap. So I've been in situations where, Tim Duncan, he went on a recruiting trip to Orlando, and everybody's on their hands and knees praying in San Antonio that he would re-sign. And the things that Coach Popovich had to do to spend, time with Tim in the offseason just to convince him that San Antonio was the place. And, I've seen it with Dirk Nowitzki in Dallas and a lot of great players. And, right now you look at how, people are getting ready for 2016. Teams are getting ready to position themselves to have an opportunity to potentially sign Kevin Durant and recruit him. So it's definitely changed the dynamic on the NBA landscape.
As we get toward the end of the season, no matter how Kentucky does, that they're going to be good, they're going to have a good year. We'll see what they do in the NCAA tournament. But at the end of the season, the decision, every one of these players almost is going to have to make a decision. Am I going to come back? Am I going to go pro? What advice would you give to a player, not whether they go, but the questions that they should ask of themselves as they make the decision?
First of all, I think they have a great resource in Coach Cal. They're going to go in and talk to Coach Cal. He's coached at the NBA before, and I think that's an advantage. So they're going to go talk to Coach Cal, and he's going to help them have an idea of potentially exactly where they are going to be drafted. I think that's the first thing. The next thing is, financially, is it imperative that I go pro to help my family financially? And I know that's a burden a lot of these kids shouldn't have to bear, but it's reality. And if I'm going to get drafted in the first round, potentially what team is going to draft me that I'm going to be able to best fit into their particular system? Because Jay said a lot of guys have gotten drafted. How many Kentucky guys have gotten drafted, but now they're playing at a high level in the NBA? Kentucky's had a lot of players that have gotten drafted, but have spent time in the D League. So, we have exceptions like Anthony Davis. great player for the New Orleans Pelicans. Now we have Julius Randle, but how many of those players are not only going to get drafted, but be productive NBA players? So a lot of questions to be answered.
Is there a number in your mind where you say, like, if a kid's going to go under 20, he probably should come back and improve his stock? Or there are some players that, you know, you are who you are. Like, not a Kentucky player, but like last year, Nick Johnson. If he had a great year, player of the year in the pack. If he came back, I'm not sure his draft stock would have changed at all. He was who he is. All right, so, like, for these guys, as an NBA coach and a guy that's talking to general managers, it's a futures market. How hard is it to really project where these, not where they are, but where they're going?
It's hard to project because, you know, in 3 or 4 years, you know, or so, you got to talk about whether you want to give them an extension once you draft them to your team. And then at that point, they're 21 or 22, and you're going to be asking yourself, you know, did this kid improve where we're going to make him a cornerstone of our franchise? Kenneth Faried, for example, you know, he just got a $60 million extension with the Denver Nuggets. You know, Denver's had a chance to evaluate him for a couple of years, so that evaluation process it's going to be daily with how they practice, how they perform in the game, and really at the end of the day, have they gotten better? And then for a coach, you know, is he stable with his contract situation, Coach, which you understand? I think NBA coaches feel differently depending on, you know, whether they're in a lame duck situation with 1 year left on their contract, or whether you know, there's Steve Kerr just joining the Golden State Warriors, or Derek Fisher joining the New York Knicks as their head coach. I think every coach has a different situation.
Aaron Harrison right now at the free throw line got a very nice pass as he cut to the basket from Karl Anthony Towns. And Harrison, who had a spectacular end to the season, hitting, it seemed like shot after shot after shot in the NCAA tournament from that left side of the floor, has really seemed to add a lot to his game. He's putting the ball on the floor now, shot faking. He seems to have slowed down with his game a bit. And one thing, Seth, in watching part of this 5-on-5 scrimmage is Andrew Harrison, Aaron's brother and essentially the point guard, and what we talked about being the leader of this team. He's really handled the pressure that Tyler Ulis has put on him. It hasn't affected him. Ulis hasn't been really been able to get into him the way I would have expected.
He's learned to use his body. He's learned to use the floor, and I think he's doing a better job overall of pitching the ball ahead of times and getting the ball out of his hands. But both Harrisons, they've got big bodies and they're physical. If they use the floor and use their bodies, you know, it's an advantage getting in the lane. But I'll tell you the other thing, in transition, Tyler Ulis, his ability to transport the ball from foul line to foul line and move the defense, that's hard to guard.
You know, Avery, when Aaron Harrison came off that last pick and roll situation, he didn't blast off it at 1,000 miles an hour. And his ability to change speeds really looks like it's matured. I've been really impressed with him, both this summer and right now.
And you can learn that at an early age, changing speeds, changing gears, playing at 5 different speeds instead of 1 speed. That makes you a much more effective pick and roll player, isolation player, penetrator. It's just hard to guard.
The really good guards see all 5 defenders when they're coming off those ball screens. They don't just see the guy guarding them and the hedge defender. They see all 5 defenders, and Jay, what you said is slowing down so you can read the defense and not just make up your decision. I think that's important. The possession before, Ulis, he did a great job of kind of probing off the ball screen and seeing if I get the ball reversed quick, I can get a post entry. I think that's what he's going to bring to this team.
We're coming down to the end. The clock's still running time here at the Joe Kraft Center at the University of Kentucky. And we'll be back with some more 5-on-5 competition at Pro Day here at Kentucky. He is the only team in the country that practices daily in front of 8 national championship banners. And one of those national championship banners was hung in 1996. Rick Pitino's squad of great players led by Tony Delk, number 00. And Tony Delk had a magnificent career knocking shots down from the perimeter on that uber-talented championship team that cut the nets down in the Meadowlands in 96. And a lot of people feel that Kentucky team was the last truly great team and not misusing the word great in college basketball. And we're joined right now by Tony Delk. And Tony, when you look back at that 96 team, how would you compare that team with the one that we're seeing on the floor right now in Kentucky Blue?
You look at the experience, talent, and athleticism that this team have, and also to have depth like our team. We were able to get up and down, and we played at times 8 to 10 players, you know, just like this team will probably play during the course of the season. And we got a chance to play with each other. We made sacrifices. Every guy was really good at a position, but when we would get a big lead, those other guys would come in and they would get time, just like this team right here, you know. So you have to be ready to play. It's competitive.
The sacrifices that you're talking about, playing 8 to 10 guys, how did Rick Pitino, quote unquote, sell that to you during the season?
It was tough, you know, especially with me being a senior and wanting to play more minutes because I was worried about the NBA draft. And coach was like, listen, if you play, we win, everybody can benefit from this. And this team, the same, I look at them, they're going to have a lot of draft picks, but they got to be ready to sacrifice for the good of the team.
What do you see as you watch this team? Is there something to say, these guys are really good, they've got great depth, but what would their but be in your mind?
Just making shots. You know, you have to be able to make shots on the perimeter. You know, you're not always going to get layups and high percentage shots, but when you're able to make shots on the perimeter, they have such a good front court that those guys, if they're making shots, the front court will be able to get easy looks.
What do you think of the freshman class? I mean, you've got 4 interesting players, and you see the big physical point guard in Harrison. Tyler Ules, is he the type of guy that you would enjoy playing with?
I would love playing with him. He reminds me of a player I played with my rookie season, Muggsy Bogues. And he has Ty Lawson kind of speed, which he has different gears, which is going to make him a great player for those guys that run the court with him.
You know, we've talked a little bit about leadership with this team. Who would you say is the most important player on this team from a leadership standpoint?
It would have to be Andrew Harrison. Whoever has the ball in their hand has to be the one to facilitate and make this team go on both ends of the court, not just only offense, but he has to make this team go defensively as well.
How do you like this concept, having essentially a pro day in the guise of a practice?
I think it's great. It gives these guys an opportunity to play in front of all the GMs and scouts, and then they'll get feedback because, of course, they're going to check the YouTube and internet and find out where they're going to be ranked at now. But it's great just the opportunity to play in front of these guys because you're going to see them during the course of the season anyway.
How do you think these guys, and they walk in that door today and they look down and they see 90 scouts and general managers and all 30 teams. As a player, how do you prepare for something like that?
It's hard to prepare for, but you have to come ready to play. When you compete at a high level, it shouldn't matter who is in the gym. You should be ready to play regardless of who's watching you play.
Well, and they're used to having NBA scouts in practice here at Kentucky. Not this many. This has been a unique situation, and it has been a lot of fun to watch. It's not over, because there are going to be some individual work going on. The 5-on-5 is over, and they're going to have individual work in front of some of these NBA scouts. But they have gotten a great show from this Kentucky team, and John Calipari hugging the man Tony Delk that made denim cool back in 1996. Next Friday, ESPNU's coverage of Midnight Madness starts at 6 p.m. Eastern Time with coverage from Kentucky, UConn, and we'll head to Tucson and see the Arizona Wildcats. Now, Kentucky fans can tune into ESPN3 for complete coverage of Big Blue Madness. That starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Midnight Madness on ESPNU and ESPN3, all on October 17th. And some of the notable games you'll see the Kentucky Wildcats play. The big one starts on November 18th, the Champions Classic in Indianapolis, as Kentucky will take on Kansas. That game, the nightcap, after Duke takes on Michigan State. That's followed by December 5th, Kentucky taking on Texas. Rick Barnes has a really deep squad. Then they take on North Carolina. And Kentucky, after having essentially finished this pro day with the 2 segments of 5-on-5 competition. You see Andrew Harrison knocking down a 3-point shot. His brother Aaron getting one right around the elbow from associate head coach John Robick. And first of all, I want to ask both of you what you saw from today that impressed you. And then I've got a question on the old advantage. Is it an unfair advantage thing? But what impressed you most today?
Well, for me, just all of the scouts being here. You know, I know the focus is on the players, but you've been saying it all during the broadcast. 90 NBA scouts were here, and I've had a chance to talk to a lot of those guys, and there is a level of excitement with a buffet, as some of them have said, a smorgasbord, having an opportunity to watch all of these young, terrific athletes. So I'm impressed, and I've had a chance to see a lot of old friends, and it's just impressive. Give Coach Cal a lot of credit.
Yeah, Cal's had a great vision, but when you think about the potential for 9 guys drafted potentially on one roster, to see the number of talented players, and then trying, as a former coach, starting to think, all right, how's this thing going to work, this platoon thing? Can they develop a chemistry? Can they have enough trust in each other for this to work? Not for 8 days, but for the length of the season. That's going to be the challenge to me for Kentucky.
Now, I've said this in the past. I joke about it that sometimes in college basketball we get kind of a third-grade mentality of saying, it's not fair, it's not fair. You know there are going to be some people that are going to say, wait a minute now, this isn't fair. It's not fair that John Calipari gets to have a pro day and TV's there and all these scouts are there and nobody else gets to have it. What's your judgment on whether this is an advantage? Well, clearly it's an advantage, whether it's an unfair one.
It's an advantage. Like, every school has advantages. I mean, Bill Self's can take his team to the Jones Cup. That's an advantage. Right. Kentucky and those banners, that's an advantage. The number of guys that are drafted, that's an advantage. Right. It's just what it is. There's not a level playing field. I mean, you know, if you recruit against Coach K, his Hall of Fame resume, his 4 national championships, the players that have been drafted, oh, and by the way, he's the Olympic coach. All those things. Everyone does what's in their best interest. That's the way this world works. Not everyone was a have. There's some have-nots. Kentucky just happens to be a have.
And that's a good point because, you know, we say advantage. Anytime you say advantage, it connotes unfair.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, all those things we're talking about are selling points. Maybe it's not right to call it an advantage. But is this something that you can see that the NCAA will come in and say, you know what, no more of this?
Well, I hope they would approve of this because I think it's great for college basketball and it's great for NBA scouts to get a head start. In terms of whether it's an advantage or not, I think it's a selling point. Mm-hmm. But it's also going to force all of the other Division I programs, especially the high majors. There are a bunch of other players that didn't sign with Kentucky. There are still quality players.
Right.
And it's going to be your job to get out and sell your program on, you know, not only are we going to be a good basketball team, but we're going to have an opportunity to have pro scouts, maybe not 90, maybe it's 20, 30 that are going to have a chance to come and watch you practice and play.
How many schools could do this?
Well, but if these were regular students, you know what we'd call this? A job fair.
Right.
and every school does it, and it'd be okay. Nobody'd say a word. But because there's so much money, and this is athletics, and we've got this third-grade mentality, people want to stop it. And, you know, look, players came to Kentucky. They had 19 guys drafted in the first round under John Calipari before they ever did this. So the idea that somehow this is going to give them some crazy advantage they didn't have before, I just don't buy it. I hope they keep doing it. I love it. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great for the game, and I think it's great for these players.
My daughter goes to a job fair and she gets an internship. These guys go to a job fair and they get a 3-year contract.
Well, you know they were nervous playing in front of these scouts. Super nervous playing in front of you.
No doubt about it. I can understand. I think Reese Davis is really nervous because, I mean, you've handled this role seamlessly.
I think that's the big news coming out of this event is that if you haven't heard of Wally Pipp, Reese Davis, you're in the unemployment line. This has been great.
Hey, and I know Jalen Rose, my partner on NBA Countdown on Wednesdays, along with the fabulous Doris Burke. I know that's the first text message I'm going to get when we get off the air. Hey, Jay did a great job.
No, you're not going to get that.
And there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Jalen would like that same job. Well, yeah, I think the big thing right now is, you know, in 2 days, these kids are going to come into the gym. There aren't going to be any scouts. There aren't going to be any general managers. And then all of a sudden it becomes the grind of the preseason because it is. This preseason is a grind. You've got to really figure out who you are and how you're going to win. And John Calipari that we saw today, I think there's going to be a little more intensity and attention to detail in the room. And that's going to be the challenge for the 4 freshmen, and it's going to be a challenge for the upperclassmen to set the tone in these practices and the grind and the dog days of preseason.
So you think this wears off pretty quickly, and they get into the heavy duty stuff right away?
I think right after Midnight Madness, after the 17th, once they get through that, I think the practice either the 18th or 19th, they're going to get into saying, hey, this is how we win. This is who we are. That's great we did the Combine. That's great we had Midnight Madness and Big Blue Madness. But you know what? It's day-to-day grind and the dog days that are going to help us win a championship.
All of the great coaches, whether they're on the NBA level, the Greg Popoviches, the Pat Rileys of the world, on the college level, Coach Cal, Coach Krzyzewski, it's about discipline and details. So we saw the nice Cal today, but the decibel level in this gym is going to go through the roof in the next 72 hours, because Coach Cal is going to make sure that this Wildcat team play Wildcat basketball the way he envisioned it.
Well, it says Kentucky basketball practice, but this has been a pro day and NBA Combine like you would see at the end of the year, and it has been really fun to watch. We've seen a lot from these players. We've certainly had an opportunity to see 90 NBA scouts and front office personnel sitting alongside. It's something we've never seen before. And that'll wrap things up from here in Lexington. Coming up next, it's College Football Live from Starkville, Mississippi. For all of us here in Kentucky, thanks for joining us, and good night.